Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Don't you understand, George? It's because you were not born.
Film church.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
You mind telling me where you're heading, Trav? What's out there?
Hello, and welcome to Film Church Radio. This is the podcast that treats cinema as a religion. It's Sunday. I'm Lewis.
And I'm Branden.
And we are here to talk about movies. Each week, Branden and I alternate picking a film for us both to watch and discuss. Today, I picked the 1984 film Paris, Texas, starring Harry Dean Stanton, Nastassja Kinski, and Dean Stockwell, directed by Wim Wenders. This is a film that I chose because I thought I had seen it before when I was at school, and it was something that, you know, a lot of people talk about. It seems to be in a lot of lists about the greatest films ever made, and I couldn't really remember it. So I chose it for us both to watch, and I think it turns out that I haven't actually seen it at all. I must have been confusing it with something else, but yeah. I'm sure we're going to get onto that a little bit later. As always, at the end of this episode, Branden is going to share with us what he has picked for us all to watch next week, which is very exciting, so stay tuned for that. But before we jump into what we've been watching and talk about the feature presentation, we'd like to thank everyone who has been listening to the podcast and sending their love for the show. If you are a person that has been told by someone from last week to come and listen to the show, tell 2 more people. We said it was going to be like a pyramid scheme. That's what's going to happen. Keep telling people about the show. Keep hyping us up. We love more people to come and join the congregation and sharing this cinematic odyssey that me and Branden have set ourselves. As always, every episode comes up on a Sunday. We are a film church, so that's when it hits. And you can find us on social media platforms at Film Church Radio, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the good places. And you can send us a message about the show. We'd love to read them and talk to you all. That would be great. We also post quite a lot of stuff on our YouTube, including full episodes, trailers, and deep dives that you won't find on the podcast. So head over there and give it a watch, and give it a like, and give us a comment. We'd like to know what you all think.
Do it.
That's right. Before we jump into the main film, me and Branden talk a little bit about what we've been watching this week. Apart from the film. So, Branden, what have you been watching?
So, I'm thankful for Film Church again this week because I don't have any other movies other than Paris, Texas on my list.
Yeah.
Blasphemous. But, you know, it's as long as you've got the one film, you know, you're still in the practice of the religion. So,
that's right.
You know, I'm good. I'm still going to film heaven.
That's right.
But I have been watching some TV shows, like me and my girlfriend Sarah have been watching Daredevil ever since Spider-Man No Way Home came out last December. Yeah. So we've been kind of slowly going through it. It's kind of one of those shows we put on when we're going to bed, and we'll watch an episode or whatever. And so we're almost... I had already seen it all, but she's watching it for the first time, and we're almost done with season 3. I think we're on the last episode. And still, you know, I've hyped it up a lot. I can't recommend it enough. Season 3 isn't my favorite season, but like Vincent D'Onofrio really gets to shine even more than he has in the other seasons as the Kingpin. Because like the first season is kind of origin story stuff, and so he's not quite the Kingpin you want to see him as yet, and by season 3 he's like there. There's also some like interesting like political parallels going on in the film that are interesting to watch, especially what Vincent D'Onofrio does with it. And I mean, I think when that season came out it was like 2018, so
there's a lot going on.
Yeah. So anyway, it's really great. I can't wait for you to watch it so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm like pretty much caught up on Better Call Saul right now. They premiered like the first half of season 6 a few months ago, and they just started the last half of it. This is like the final season, so they've like split it up kind of like they did with Stranger Things. So I haven't seen the most recent episode, but I am caught up on the first half of season 6. And have you watched any of Better Call Saul?
I haven't watched any of it.
Any of it at all? Okay, well,
No.
once you start, you're probably going to binge the whole thing. And it is really, really good. Like, I know that, we're both big fans of Breaking Bad. And when Better Call Saul was announced, it was kind of like, really? That's what they're going to do next? Yeah. But Bob Odenkirk as Saul Goodman. Well, Saul Goodman you find out, is a character that he's created, and his real name is Jimmy McGill, which I think they hint to in Breaking Bad. They only mention it in like one episode or whatever. You can kind of forget about it. But man, it's so good. I mean, the writing, again, it's like all the things that made Breaking Bad so good. The writing, the cinematography, the acting, all the filmmaking stuff that makes like masterpieces is in this show.
Yeah.
The character development, all that stuff. So
I wonder why it's not as talked about as Breaking Bad then.
I don't know. I think it's because maybe
weird.
The Breaking Bad fan base didn't all jump on it. But like the people that have seen Better Call Saul, like I don't hear anyone saying anything bad about it that has seen it. And they're all up for Emmys. I mean, it's already won, as far as I know. Well, I don't know if it's I'm pretty sure that Bob Odenkirk has won at least one Emmy. I don't really know. I know he's been nominated. And then his co-star was just nominated for this season as well. So it's good. Some of the best TV out there. And if you love Breaking Bad, you're going to love Better Call Saul. Unfortunately, they don't put out the season, like the most recent season, until like a year after it premieres on Netflix anyway. So right now, there's 5 seasons on Netflix. Yeah. But once you start, you're going to be hooked. So just be warned.
Get ready for it.
Yeah. And then I've started Umbrella Academy season 3. And so far, so good. It's a good show.
Yeah, Chelsea likes it. I've never watched it again.
Yeah.
I'm not, like, there's something about TV that, I don't know, like, I have to be really into it.
Yeah, for sure.
If that means. Like, and just, I think it's the undertaking. It's like knowing...
Well, there's just so much. There's so much
exactly.
TV out there. It seems to be the thing that's like that. Like more people watch TV shows than movies. It seems like. Yeah. You know,
definitely. Mm-hmm.
Especially when it comes to like indie stuff. Like, there's more people watching like random, one-off series or just independent shows than they are independent films like you and I might watch. Yeah. So.
It's true.
But yeah, what have you been watching?
I'm going to talk about TV first. So like we kind of talked about TV already. The new Apple TV show, Blackbird, has started, and they put the first 2 episodes up, and now it's kind of weekly for, I think, the last 4. Okay. And so we've watched the first 2. We haven't watched the one that was released last Friday, I think now. But that is really good. It's Taron Egerton, Paul Walter Hauser, who was in I, Tonya and Richard Jewell, and you'll know,
okay.
Like when you
I remember
see
seeing the previews for that.
And basically, Taron Egerton kind of is a character that gets put in prison, and he wants to get out early, so they offer him a deal where he goes to a prison for the criminally insane to try and get some information out of this guy Larry Hall. Who's in there, but they're not quite sure. You're never quite sure, like, if he's actually done it or if he's just like confessing to things. And it's just a really tense, like, drama. It's really like scary. You kind of it puts you in their shoes. Yeah, especially the Taron Egerton character, and you're just like, this is insane. Yeah. And it's based on a true story. So I'm trying my best not to look it up. Right. Because I don't want to know.
You don't want to get spoiled. Happens. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, performances are really good. Greg Kinnear's in it as well, which I don't feel like I've seen Greg Kinnear for like a long time. Yeah. which is great. So, and that's on Apple TV, so that's definitely worth a watch.
Sweet.
But film-wise, so I finished the Apu trilogy.
Yes.
Satyajit Ray's magnum opus. It's I finished it with The World of Apu, and we talked about this a little bit last week about how it was like the higher of the three.
Yeah.
In terms of rating, and I was looking forward to seeing it. And it is really good. I think I enjoyed the first part of the trilogy a lot more than the other two.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the other two were really good.
Yeah.
But I think the first one just worked for me a lot more. And there was a lot of things in it that I'm not sure if that was supposed to be the message, but I took away from it. You know, and it was like a really satisfying conclusion to this story.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, the trilogy is just so good. So I recommend it. They're great. And then I took a day off from work, pretty much just to watch some films.
Yeah.
So like, my wife's away working. I mean, you know, my daughter's at daycare. So I was like, okay, I've got a full day of being able to watch a movie. So I started with the Earrings of Madame D. It sounded like I was going to continue, but that's the title. I never know how to kind of finish it.
Yeah.
A French film from 1953, directed by Max Opoulos. I might be saying that completely wrong. As people know from the podcasts that have listened before, my pronunciations are terrible. And it's about a kind of a countess who sells her earrings at the beginning of the film, and it's like the ramifications of what happens to her and her family and the people around her after that.
Yeah.
And it's very, very good. Really good performances, because it's not restricted by the Hollywood production code. It can go places that you wouldn't necessarily think it would go in terms of like 1940s cinema.
Right. Yeah.
It was a really enjoyable watch. And I was reading the booklet that was included because it's a Criterion disc, and they were talking about how people that love it. And the reason it's not higher up on the list of the greatest films ever, the person that wrote this article believes, is because it's from a female standpoint. It's from like a female view, whereas Citizen Kane and Vertigo are very manly, masculine kind of films.
Interesting.
And it was kind of like, I can see where they're coming from. I think it would do with a few more watches to kind of get up into that like best film of all time list.
Right.
But it was still really good. And again, another recommendation.
Yeah. I always like French films. Like,
yeah,
I think from any era really, but
yeah,
that era too. I mean, that's pretty close to like the French New Wave era right there.
Yeah. It was, it's just really like well shot, and the script is tight, and there's, you know, a lot kind of going on that kind of ties together.
Yeah.
It's great. And then I managed to fit in Boomerang, which I know we mentioned quickly last week when we were talking about A Face in the Crowd, like Hazan's second film, I believe.
Okay.
I think it would make a really good double bill with A Face in the Crowd.
Okay.
I rated it 3 out of 5. It was okay.
Yeah.
I think some of it was a bit heavy-handed in what it was trying to do, but it's basically about a murder of a priest in like a local town, and the police investigation is not really getting anywhere. So the district attorney kind of comes in to help, and then it's the ramifications of that. So it's about corruption in the government and where money comes from, and whether just, you know, getting a win for the police is worth sentencing the wrong person. All that kind of stuff. Like I said, it sounds like there's a lot going on, but it still felt a bit surface level.
Mm-hmm. Didn't go as deep as it should have or something.
Yeah, you can tell that the themes that we've talked about, you know, political and influencing decisions based on popularity and stuff like that are there. It's just not as nuanced and well thought out as the film we knew before. Maybe if I'd watched this earlier, I would have liked it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But Facing the Crowd is like a hard act to follow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think if any cinema wants to do a Kazan double bill, Boomerang and Facing the Crowd is a great pick. And that's a Film Church Radio recommendation, ladies and gentlemen. So
you got it right here.
You can take it to the bank. I think this is going to start. I'm going to watch a few more Kazan films in the next few weeks. I can feel it.
Yeah.
I went to Barnes & Noble again, and they didn't have On the Waterfront, which is, I was like, dang it, that's the one I went in for. So.
Damn you, Barnes & Noble.
So, yeah, I'll just have to go to another one, drive a bit further afield. But
sorry that I like do a English accent sometimes. I feel like I just like do it, and I'm like, I'm not actually trying to imitate you.
Yeah, that's okay. Everybody does it at one point or another. It just becomes part of the course now. Like Chelsea does it all the time. So
yeah,
we're good.
Cool.
But yeah, that was it. I mean, a few films here and there. Some good ones.
Yeah.
So
it was a good week.
It was a good week, yeah. But other than that, Branden and I watched Paris, Texas, from 1984. And the IMDb summary is Travis Henderson, an aimless drifter who has been missing for 4 years, wanders out of the desert and must reconnect with society, himself, his life, and his family. As I said at the top, I thought I had seen this film before. I was pretty sure I had, but I have definitely
not.
Yeah, because I did not. None of it seemed familiar at all.
Yeah.
Apart from the images that I'd seen of him in his little red baseball cap. I feel like I've seen that still a lot.
Have you seen other Wim Wenders films?
Yeah, so I've seen Wings of Desire.
Okay.
I've seen that a few times. Have you seen
I
any
haven't
of Wenders films?
I don't think I've seen any of his films. I've been recommended Wings of Desire, but I haven't seen it yet. So first, lots of first here for me.
Yeah. I mean, Wim Wenders is a director that, like, I feel like I know the name a lot, but I hadn't, apart from Wings of Desire, obviously I hadn't really seen any of the other films that he's done.
Yeah.
And maybe, Paris, Texas and Wings of Desire are so good that they're the ones that you have to see.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this film I think was a little surprising to me. It didn't necessarily follow the mold that I was assuming it would. Mm-hmm. But there's so much to get into.
Yeah.
So after the credits were rolling, what were your initial thoughts? Like, what did you think to the film?
I felt like I had just watched a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
It is a bit of a longer film. It's like 2 hours and 24 minutes. But there's so much there that, like, I recognize that I had just seen something incredible, but I've only watched it once. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
I think there's going to be so many other things that I catch on the rewatch. One of my first thoughts towards like the end of the film was that it's almost like a Shakespearean take on Bonnie and Clyde.
Okay.
Because it's like it's like about this this couple where the man is older and the girl is younger. It's kind of a southern western look on America, or at least in the setting. And then, when he's giving his speech, the Travis character, when he's talking to her through the window and going through their life or whatever, he talks about the fact that they made everything in their life adventurous. And there's so many ways you could read into that. It's like adventurous in what ways? Like, did they go and, like, when he's like going to the grocery store was an adventure. It's like, why? Was it because you were robbing it? It's like, that's where my mind went, was like, it was like kind of a Bonnie and Clyde tale, even though they didn't go there. It's almost like to me, it was like taking Bonnie and Clyde and saying what would have happened if they hadn't died. You know,
Yeah.
which is an interesting thought. I don't know if that's kind of conceptually where the idea for this started.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't really know the story behind the filmmaking, or you know where the story came from or anything, but yeah, that was my initial thought upon finishing it. What were your thoughts upon finishing it?
I think I had similar thoughts to what you were just saying. That on the initial watch, there's so much that I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about the overall themes, but just like the basic plot. I was like, okay, what has happened to the wife? Is she dead? Like, you know, where is she? What's going on? Who is this person? What's happened? Why is he here? Why isn't he, like, all these questions that are kind of generally answered during the course of the film seem to kind of plague my first watching. Whereas I think the second time I can go back and really listen to other bits of the dialogue, if that makes sense.
Right.
You know, kind of listen to, I don't know, just get the themes that aren't in your face,
right,
so to speak. Because there's just so much going on that, you know, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's overly dramatic. It's not, you know, yeah, she's dead, you know. So I think the second watch is going to be a lot better in terms of like sinking into it and just enjoying the visuals a lot more as opposed to the story.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the visuals really stood out to me.
Yeah.
As probably the high point of this film. Just on the first watch, like there seemed to be a lot of metaphorical things going on thematically and everything that, as we've said, we'll probably catch again, like have more of an understanding on the second watch. But I don't know of a better shot film than this. Like, it's every single thing in the movie looks incredible. I had no idea what to expect when going into this movie. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was like some kind of gunslinging Western kind of a thing in Texas. There is a place called Paris, Texas. I mean, we both live in Texas. I'm born and raised in Texas.
I am not.
And you know, I've driven through Paris, Texas. So I always thought this film took place in Paris, Texas, but you know, it doesn't. You never actually go there. I kept thinking, okay, when are we going to Paris, Texas? You know, so I wasn't really. There's so many things going on in my brain, and I'm sure it's the same for you watching a film for the first time, where even if you don't know anything about it, you almost are like trying to figure it out as it goes. Because like 100%. As soon as there's like a scene where there's a French woman, you know, speaking dialogue, I was like, are they in actual Paris? Or is this scene in actual Paris, France? You know, and the title of the film is actually like not a comma. It's more of like it's not Paris, Texas. It's Paris, France, and Texas. You know, it's like gonna show the two of them, but it's not that either. And yeah, so then throughout the film, I'm like, okay, eventually they're gonna go to Paris, Texas.
Yeah.
You know, once he gets in the car with his brother, I keep thinking that, or, you know, once his brother lets him drive the car, I'm like, he's just going to turn around the car and drive to Paris, Texas. Because he pulls up this photograph that he has of a vacant lot that he's bought in Paris, Texas. And you don't really know why.
Yeah.
And then, you know, later on in the film, he leaves the family, his brother's family, and again, I thought he was going to go to Paris, Texas, you know, but he goes to Houston, Texas. But you know, besides all of the like the mystery of the film and trying to dissect it and figure it out on my first watch, the visuals kept standing out to me. It was like beautiful. Like every single thing in this movie was beautiful. I really love like the scenes with him and his son when they're like on the side of the road and they're like under a couple of bridges, like they're on an underpass or whatever. And the way it's shot just feels like you're looking at ancient Rome or something.
Yeah.
Like the way that the bridges are displayed as these huge, giant things, which they are, but it just made it feel like you were looking at things that you had seen before, but with a different lens, from a different point of view, which I think is the beautiful thing about film, is like you're looking at the world through someone else's eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what surprised me most about the shot compositions and the way that this was filmed was that the characters were in shot, but they're always placed slightly at a center of the frame.
Yeah.
So that the background or like the scenic views was the first thing that your eye went to.
Mm-hmm.
And then the characters sitting in the car would be in kind of like the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah.
So that you could kind of, I don't know, so you could take in the surroundings and not be obscured by the characters, but not really lose anything.
Yeah.
And it was the same when we get that great shot of when Travis is driving the car, but you just see his eyes in the rear view, and you're kind of looking out through the front of the car.
Yeah, that's a great shot.
Yeah, there's so much in here that just makes America look beautiful,
mm-hmm.
And incredible. As soon as it started, I was like, wow, this is cool. It's like the American Western kind of settings, but not like up to date. For today kind of thing.
When Travis at the beginning of the film is he's like walking in the desert, and then he finds this like little grocery store gas station in the middle of nowhere, and he's like goes up to like the water pump to try to see if there's water.
Yeah.
Did it remind you of anything? The first thing I thought of was Fistful of Dollars.
Okay.
It's just like in this one, there's just like one building in the middle of nowhere, and he's like trying to get water, like right at the beginning of the film.
That's good. I didn't think of that at all. I think that I was too busy being like, who is this man?
Yeah.
Where has he come from? Where is he heading to? And even then,
where's his donkey?
We get a clue like straight away as to who he is. He goes into this gas station, opens the fridge up, and it's just beer.
Yeah.
And there's a second where he like takes a beat and then closes the door and tries to find water.
Yeah.
And straight away I was like, is he an alcoholic? Was he an alcoholic?
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
I think that this is what I was saying. I think that now that I know the story, because even then, like, nobody had said a word yet. It was just the visuals. So I was paying more attention to them.
Right.
But then as soon as like things started to come out, you kind of, I don't know, you don't lose track of it, but you're just focusing on the other things.
Right, yeah.
So now that I know the basic story, and I can kind of, I don't know, watch the screen instead of listen to it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot more that I'm sure I'll pick up on.
Yeah. There were a lot of like, there's so much to love in this film. Like, I think I'm going to enjoy watching this. Like, the more I watch this film, the more I'm going to enjoy it. There was parts of it that almost reminded me of like Napoleon Dynamite in a weird way. Just like the way that some of those diner scenes were shot, and just the dialogue scenes. The dialogue wasn't as, ridiculous and jokey and quotable as like Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
But just like that kind of basic, like, here's a question, here's an answer, the way that the back and forth just went, and the way it was shot mixed with that kind of was like, this feels like Napoleon Dynamite a little bit.
Yeah.
There's like a scene where I think maybe it's in that diner scene where the brothers are talking, and he's like saying that he's been gone for 4 years, and he's like, is 4 years a long time? And he's like, it is for a kid, you know? And then there's like some comedic moments, like when when the kid, like after they watch the Super 8 movie, the kid is like, good night, Dad. And then he goes over to his real dad, and he's like, good night, Dad.
I found that part really moving.
Yeah. I mean, it is moving, yes.
Yeah.
Because you don't expect him to call him Dad. You know, because at first he's like he doesn't want to talk to him, doesn't really want to acknowledge him. Like there's a scene where he's sitting in the car, like hiding in the car, and his uncle / stepdad comes out, and he's like, what are you doing out here? And he's like, I'm driving.
Yeah.
Just driving, you know. But then that changed to like not wanting to talk to him to you're my dad now happens really fast.
It does.
And I really appreciated all of the kids' moments in this film because they felt so real. Like things that a kid would really say at that age. You know, it's the kind of dialogue that would be really hard to write. And so I'm wondering if maybe they improvise some of that because of how perfect it is.
I was thinking the same thing, especially when they're looking through the photo album and he kind of describes like the water coming out of the hose in the picture. And he's like, I love it how it's like, psst, and then it kind of goes, psst, you know, and it's like noises. And I'm like, you couldn't really, I don't think a kid would understand like how to kind of, I mean, not necessarily to say it, but like what they were going for.
Yeah.
So I think there are moments of improvisation, especially between those two characters.
Yeah. Because, you know, you could tell them like, hey, tell us what you like about this water hose. Or
exactly.
Or just like, you know, maybe they did a lot of takes and they eventually got there, you know. But,
yeah, and Travis is just like, right.
Yeah. Yep.
Which, like, being a parent, you know, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Children say things and you're like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. And then there's like a scene where the kid is standing outside of his school next to his friend, and his dad is there. This is after another scene where his dad wanted to walk him home and he didn't. This is after that, and he's at school again with his friend, and the kid's like, "Who is that?" And he's like, "That's my dad." And he's like, "I thought you already had a dad." And he's like, "I've got 2 dads, I guess." And he's like, "How do you have 2 fathers?" And he's like, "Just lucky, I guess." I thought that was just like really sweet, you know?
Yeah.
And just like, yeah, you know, it's like, where do you find that stuff? There's something beautiful in it, you know?
Yeah.
And poetic about it.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that the father-son relationships is, I know for a lot of people why this film is so important to them.
Yeah.
It's just kind of seeing a less than perfect father-son relationship and still have them be able to bond and kind of grow out of it.
Yeah.
You know, which is great. And also, you know, mother-son relationship as well. There's a lot to unpack it, like in the end, final, 20 minutes when Travis is giving his whole speech about what happened to them. There's so much in there to unpack. In terms of like character.
I mean, there's a whole nother like 4-hour movie in there.
Yeah. There's like jealousy, there's depression, there's, I don't know.
There's alcoholism.
Age gaps, alcoholism. Yeah, poverty, living in a trailer, all these kind of things that are just kind of
verbal abuse.
Mental abuse. Yeah.
I mean, even like, he even says at one point that he like takes off his belt and he like ties her onto something.
Yeah.
And goes to bed.
Yeah, puts a bell on her foot so that he knows if she's getting out of bed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there to unpack, and I think, the photo of the lot he has, the empty lot in Paris, Texas, is pretty much, it's his relationship. He's fondly looking at it. He keeps it close to him, but there's nothing there.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that's driven him for years and years, but it's not a house, it's not a home.
Right.
Know?
Yeah.
And you can just tell that, I mean, maybe he's not, the character of Travis isn't, he's very childlike in his approach to things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I didn't know if that has been developed after the kind of breakdown of his marriage in the last 4 years, or whether that was him as a character before.
Right.
And the more I think about it, the more I think that it was probably him as a person before.
Right.
Because the way that Dean and his wife, Dean Stockwell, sorry, and his wife in the film kind of deal with him and talk about him, it makes me think that he's always been
kind of like
what
that.
it is. Maybe on the spectrum. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Like what character beats necessarily mean in terms of his personality. You know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is hard to tell if it was like a cause of alcoholism or maybe a cause of
insecurities and
or just coming out of alcoholism.
Yeah.
Coming out of that fog of just like drinking every day for 4+ years or however long it's been, or maybe it's been a problem his whole life or whatever. But I guess he's not really, I mean, he hasn't really quit alcohol though, has he? I mean, there's only the one time I can think of in the movie where he's like at the bar drinking a beer and his son is like, "Why are you drinking that? It stinks." And he like goes to the car and he's like, "I'll have another."
No, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess that the closer he is to his ex-wife, like the more these habits start to kind of come back.
Yeah, because that's something I might pay attention to next time I watch it. Is like, is that the only time we see him drink in the film? Is like when he's about to go talk to her?
Yeah, I think it must be because, like I said, the bit at the beginning, like he opens the fridge and there's like ice cold beers there.
Yeah,
and you would have thought if he was still, drinking heavily, that would have been what he gravitated. Like he would have grabbed one.
Right. Yeah.
So, I think that they're just, and that's why in the end he kind of decides to leave, I guess, is that he knows if he is a part of this, it wouldn't be a happy home.
Yeah.
They couldn't, because when they were describing everything, I was like, I don't know how this is going to end happily, because that's a lot of stuff to just kind of be like, I forgive you.
Yeah.
And in the end, he just kind of leaves. Who knows where he went, but I assume he went to the vacant lot in Paris, Texas.
Yeah.
Paris,
Texas 2.
Yeah, because part of me was like, when he was talking about his father and the joke he always told him, that how he thinks he was conceived in Paris, Texas. I was like, is he going there to end his life? Like make it like a full, this is where I was conceived, this is where I'm going to end.
Yeah.
This life. That was, especially when he drove off at the end, I was like, that would be a really, he's not made amends, but he's, tied up that loose end for his son and his ex-wife. Maybe that's where he's going to go to see out the rest of his days.
Maybe. I was trying to figure out if there's like a metaphor or like what the significance of that whole thing was, where he's talking about his dad, saying that my wife's from Paris, Texas, and then he there's like the scene where he's talking with his son and talking about how his father had this idea of his mother, and when he looked at her, he didn't see her, he just saw the idea.
Yeah.
And then also saying that he started, when he was saying that his wife's from Paris, he started actually believing it, and that it wasn't a joke anymore. But it's all like still vague. It's like, what is that he actually saying here?
Yeah, it could be. There was a lot of things that I kind of started to think, and then I don't know, changed my mind. I think part of it was just giving us an example of Travis as a person. He had to get that joke right. He kind of started retelling it like 2 or 3 times to make sure it was like spot on. which is kind of a very childlike, adoration of your parents.
Right.
But like you said about his father started to believe that she was from Paris, Texas, maybe mental health issues kind of runs in the family. And that's what we're supposed to take from it. But then also maybe it's like an idea of a perfect relationship in his head. And it's something that he hasn't got. There's so many things in there that I think that's the beauty of the script, is that we're supposed to just take from it what we assume. It's not there directly for us to take.
Yeah, because maybe, the way that he says that he started actually believing it, maybe his parents didn't actually meet in Paris, Texas.
Yeah. Maybe it's just something he said to his wife when they're driving through, and she was like, "That's funny."
Yeah.
He was like, "Okay, I'm going to tell this joke."
Yeah. And now he's trying to make the fantasy a reality by buying a lot in Paris, Texas, which is like the kind of the way that he views his life, or his relationship with his wife and his son, I guess.
Yeah.
Some deep, dark stuff.
Yeah. And I think this is why it was very heavy as a film. There was so many themes here that, it was dealing with. I feel sorry for the foster parents as well, Walton and Henderson. Because pretty much the last we see of them, they're like, what are we going to do if we lose Hunter? Like, what's going to happen to us?
Yeah.
And then they lose Hunter. And you're just like, what happened to them?
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
There's so much in here to be kind of heartbroken about.
Yeah.
But I think that it feels like when it finishes, it feels optimistic.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Which is a real hard trick to pull off, especially after everything we've kind of just seen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that scene with the mother when she comes in and the kid comes up to her, and like the way that he like wraps his arms around her, and then he's like playing with her hair, and then he's like, your hair's wet, and then they just like hugs her again, and then she just like stands up and they like spin around and they're just like hugging each other.
Yeah. It's like they're never going to let each other go.
Yeah. It doesn't get more real than that. It's like, it's almost like they're not acting at that point. Like it feels real,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. It definitely felt optimistic, but tragic in the same, the same way as like Shakespeare is, any kind of Shakespeare play is like a tragedy, is what it felt like to me. A beautiful tragedy or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah. For sure. I think that part of that rests on the acting ability of Harry Dean Stanton. Honestly, I think that straight from the first minute, I was like, he's incredible.
Yeah.
And it just got better. The scene with him and Walt when they're in the like diner and he's kind of talking about Hunter a little bit for the first time. And you can just see the tears welling up. You can just tell that he's heartbroken about it. He knows that it was his fault.
Yeah.
At that point. And then all the way through, the interactions seem genuine. He's like an alien, in a different kind. Like he's awake all the time. He doesn't really eat very often. He's just otherworldly.
Yeah.
And I think that's down to Stanton's performance as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he was incredible. He's one of those people that I feel like I've seen in a lot of stuff, but I can't really be like, oh yeah, he was this and that, and that guy in this.
I first knew him from Alien.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my first interaction
yeah
kind of came from. So, but there's, probably a list as long as you're on.
Yeah. Which is very short. I'm just kidding. Got little T-Rex arms.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Not really. That was a joke.
And
Listeners are just imagining what I look like. It's like
little tiny T-Rex arms.
But yeah, you were saying.
Written by Sam Shepard, who is also an actor.
Okay.
And some things that I found out was that it wasn't that the shooting started in 1983 and the screenplay wasn't complete yet. And then they wanted the characters to kind of start from the beginning of the film and work their way through it and really get to know the characters before they decided where it went.
Gotcha.
And then Sam Shepard kind of wrote that ending in relation to the actors' performances along the way. Which, I mean, it did feel real. As we've said, it didn't feel forced.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting way to go about it, and also scary as heck. It's like it'd be interesting to learn how they, I mean, I guess Wim Wenders maybe had an established career and, this wasn't a huge budget. It always blows my mind when productions are able to pull off something like that, because it's like, how did you convince anyone to give you money to start a film that wasn't written?
Yeah.
Same with like Boyhood, Linklater's masterpiece. It's like, it's crazy that anybody gave him money to just be like, go shoot every summer.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, so Wim Wenders was part of the new Germany cinema that erupted in like the late 60s.
Okay.
Post World War II and the kind of ramifications of that. This new group of young directors that had seen what had happened, was against it, wanted to, show their kind of life. And up until this point, he'd been making films in Germany. I think he made one in America before this, before he got poached by the studios and kind of pulled over.
Gotcha.
Which strikes me as odd that like his most well-known American film, even though it's in partnership with like Germany and France as the beginning, is about America and not about his own personal experiences.
Yeah.
It's because this America again is like, it's beautiful. I want to live in this portrayal of America. The house that Walt and Anne live in is incredible. Like that view over LA. I know they say that they can hear airplanes all the time, but it's breathtaking. The diners look great. There's like gas for 109. It's like, I want to live in this version of America.
Yeah.
The payphones and the cars, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it is very American. It's such a snapshot of a time.
Yeah.
Which I think, some people work really hard to get a snapshot of like modern life. But I feel like this kind of did it effortlessly, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it feels like for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's even a very 80s looking jacket that the kid wears at one point. That I'm just like,
is it NASA and stuff on the back?
Yeah. I'm just like, this kid could be in Stranger Things right now.
That's right, yeah.
I was listening to an interview, I think it was with Sam Mendes talking about this movie, and he was, I think it was, I listened to a few different interviews, so I'm sorry if it wasn't him that actually pointed this out. It might have been somebody else. It was talking about how when they go to the big city, when they go to Houston, they're like the only people in the street.
Yeah.
And everybody is either in a car or behind glass somewhere. And they're the only people that are like out and about. Which kind of puts, it just says something about just like the way that he saw society, I guess, at the time. Just everyone behind glass, which I think it's even more so now than 1984.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously the parallels between when they're out in the desert and kind of wandering around. We get the guitar twang all the time because there's no other noise. But as soon as they move to LA, it's like car horns, aeroplanes.
Yeah.
It's kind of the music drops out to give way to the constant noise that is surrounding them all the time.
Yeah.
You know, there's that real, like, a country of two halves. There's the silent, you know, beautiful, and then there's the city.
Yeah.
And it does a really good job portraying both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
mean,
I can't wait to watch more of Wim Wenders' films.
Wings of Desire is very essential cinema. Wings of Desire.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially to understand what was going on in Germany and stuff like that. It's just, it's crazy. It's incredibly good.
That might be what I watch next.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to hear on a future episode what you thought.
Yeah.
Because it's another one where it kind of catches you off guard.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, it's great. This is one of Akira Kurosawa's favorite films.
I read that. Yeah, that's pretty telling, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a version of America that you would get from an outsider, isn't it? I mean, and I think that's probably why it resonates with so many people.
Yeah.
Is that it is, again, it's just this dream factory. You know, you can wander through the desert for 4 years and still end up, you know, in cities.
Yeah.
And surrounded by people that love you and stuff like that.
Yeah. I did also read that this was one of Kurt Cobain's favorite movies, which immediately made sense to me because the kind of guitar twang that you hear throughout the film, like as soon as I heard that, I was like, this sounds like that one Nirvana song. I don't know if you've heard it. It's Where Did You Sleep Last Night?
Yeah.
Did it remind you of that at all?
It reminded me more of Breaking Bad.
That's what Sarah said. Yeah.
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 But just like the kind of very bluesy, you know, acoustic guitar. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, especially just the notes, I think, in that little guitar riff sounded like Where Did You Sleep Last Night by Nirvana, which actually I kind of want to look up now and wonder if he was inspired by, because it's about you know, like the main chorus is like, my girl, where did you sleep last night?
Yeah.
You know, which is like the Harry Dean Stanton character, and you know, talking about their life, says that he got to a point where he was jealous and wondering who she was spending time with while he was at work.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's like we said, there's just so much in here to pick up on and kind of to wash over you that I don't feel like we've got half of what they were going for.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what's great. It awards repeat viewings, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I just feel that the performances are, you know, nobody else could have played these roles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect film.
Yeah.
You know, it's like lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. And, you know, Harry Dean Stanton, it was actually his birthday a few days ago.
Oh, happy birthday, my dude.
So I think we probably both watched it on his birthday.
Okay.
Which was really
crazy.
Yeah. Kind of kismet in a way.
Yeah. Oh, same birthday as my brother, Bryson.
Happy birthday, Bryson.
Happy birthday, my dude. Even though you'll be hearing this weeks later. Weeks. Yeah. Not weeks, but
a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah. What else, man?
I don't know where, you know, I feel like there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And we could talk about what things meant forever. You know, I think that every idea that I've had while watching it the first time is going to change on the second viewing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's going to be a completely different film.
Yeah. This is definitely a movie I would want to watch in a theater. on the big screen.
Be
Will
immersed by it.
completely change the way that you see it.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about all those shots, just like
I know. Yeah.
the landscapes and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And just the way that everything was staged, I'm thinking about when his brother goes to the doctor's place and he's like, we left this morning. And then we cut and we kind of see Travis walking across the train tracks towards us. And then the car appears in the distance at like just the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like just everything is just perfectly like put together. It's just great.
Yeah. Great filmmaking. A lot to learn here.
That's it.
For all you filmmakers out there.
Yeah. That was one of the things I was going to ask you, just like, what did you get from it? I mean, what did you make of the filmmaking as a filmmaker?
I don't know. That's a hard thing to answer, other than like things I've already said, I think. I mean, there's a ton to study here. I think this film is going to go in a certain like slot in my brain of like, if I'm going to be making a film, if I'm going to, I don't know, like as something that I would reference for all kinds of films I might try to make, basically. Like not even necessarily in the same vein of the kind of American West Southern thing that it is. But the way that the characters are handled and some of the compositions, and I don't know. There's just so much there. It's hard to really to say exactly, but I'm sure.
Just because as someone that's never really made a film, this kind of got my creative juices flowing. So I can't imagine what it was like for you.
Yeah. It definitely gets the creative juices flowing, and it also is like intimidating. It's like, dear God, how do I ever get there? But the important thing is just to start somewhere. You're never going to get there unless you start somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, that's right.
So,
do
it.
Just like Travis, he started walking. He got there.
And standing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Rory Calhoun's back.
The only other person that could have played. No, not really. Harry Dean Stanton was the only person who could have played Travis.
100%. Yeah. I do want to kind of, my last thing I want to say is just that at the end it's dedicated to Lottie H. Eisner, who was a big German film, champion, I guess.
Oh, okay.
For some people it is just a phrase, but she literally wrote the book on like Fritz Lang and Murnau and these really important German directors. Spent a lot of time kind of interviewing them and doing like a whole retrospective of their work. So when I saw that name pop up, I was like, oh, sweet. It's obviously, I'm not sure exactly why it's dedicated, but to me it was just like a nod towards German heritage and kind of the cinema of these German masters,
Yeah.
And just like Lang and Murnau, Wenders started in Germany and eventually got snapped up by Hollywood. So
yeah,
there's a lot of parallels there, but it was nice to see a name pop up.
I mean, there are a lot of German influences in Texas culture as well. I've been learning recently.
Oh, cool.
Through conversations, not through actual studying, but but like, I mean, for instance, barbecue.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows Texas barbecue is like, apparently we learned that from German immigrants, the technique and stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Germany, for the barbecue.
Dankeschön.
Yeah.
I think that's thank you in German.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Good job.
Like,
I
I hope
took
that's
A-level
right.
German when I was at school. Not A-level GCSE, like when I was at high school and stuff. And I really wish I could remember some of it, apart
Yeah.
from hello and goodbye.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, I remembered that just from every once in a while hearing someone say that. But my great grandmother was full-blooded German.
Oh,
It's a
cool.
weird thing to say, full-blooded.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just realized that. Just now realizing that. I mean, but that's something that people say or
It
have
is.
said around me.
Yeah.
It's just weird to say about somebody.
Yeah, Chelsea's from German heritage as well. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah. A lot of Germanic influences in the US.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's guess what we each rated it on Letterboxd.
Okay.
I think for you I think you gave it 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think for you, 4.5.
Yes. Correct.
Nice.
Yeah, I need to watch it again.
Yeah, for
There's
sure.
just,
That's what I was
there's just
thinking. I was
loose
like,
threads. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's gonna end up being a 5 for you at some point, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot in there that I'm like, what happened? So,
Tell me.
I know. So I just need to go back and just kind of let it wash over me a little bit.
You're like
more.
Walt in the beginning of the film where he's like, I'm getting tired of this. Just talk.
Yeah, exactly. Am I the one that's doing all the talking?
Yeah.
Oh, dear. So what are you going to watch next week, Branden? And what am I going to watch next week? I don't know why I phrased it like that. What are we going to watch
What are we
next
going to
week?
watch? What is Film Church Radio going to watch and discuss? The community.
That's right.
So I decided to go with this film that was recommended by a former customer of ours, of both of ours, the famous Mav.
Hey, Mav.
A film called Deadline USA from 1952 starring Humphrey Bogart.
Bogey.
I don't really know anything about this movie other than she recommended I watch it and wanted to know my thoughts on the film. You know, even if I hated it, she was like, just tell me honestly.
Yeah.
And I just haven't gotten around to it. I kept being like, you know, I'm going to watch it, you know, for sure. And then just haven't done it. It's only an hour and 27 minutes, so.
Hey-o.
A nice short one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. And then,
yeah.
you know, I can say, hey, I watched that movie and recorded a podcast. And
Yeah, here's all my thoughts.
Yeah.
Just in case I don't want to say it to your face.
So yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like as a Bogey fan, I've heard this film like mentioned a lot.
Yeah.
I've never got around to watching it. I think James Dean is in it briefly,
Okay. Sweet.
but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like he had like a non-speaking, like maybe he's in the background shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. That's going to be good.
Yeah, me
I
too.
love some Bogey.
Yeah, man. Get back to some more black and white films too.
That's it. The classics. Well, that brings us to the end of the show, I think. You can tune in next week, hear us talk about Deadline USA. And you can find the show on Twitter and Instagram at Film Church Radio. And you can follow us individually on Letterboxd. Branden is at Salmon Scope and I am at Walker Lewis 3007 to keep up with what we've been watching in real time. I log it as soon as the credits are finished. Got to sit through those credits. We also have all our back episodes streaming on all good podcast platforms. So please leave us a rating and review so we know if you like the film. Go and tell people about it. Add more people to the congregation. Let's watch more films. But yeah, I think that all that's left to say, Branden, is Paris?
Paris?
Did you ever go to Paris?
No.
Can we go there now?
It's a little out of the way.
That's all that needs to be said.
Thanks for listening, y'all.
Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Don't forget to say your Film Church prayers.
Amen.
Amen.
Bye, guys.
Bye.